Oh, we're recording. To understand what's going on in today's gospel reading, we have to review a bit what's been happening, what's the thread of the story in the last few gospel readings. A few days ago, we had the reading where Jesus says to his disciples, "Who do men say that I am?" They guess many things, including Elijah. Elijah was an early Jewish prophet who was taken up into heaven and did not die. And so the Jews expected Elijah to return from heaven to earth and to proclaim the coming of the Messiah. And then when Peter says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," and Jesus says, "Flesh and blood have not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. You are Peter. Upon this rock I will establish my church," and so forth. That's the turning point. From that point on, the gospel shifts because right after that, Jesus then says, "Here's what's going to happen to me in Jerusalem." Now, Peter has just confessed that Christ is the Son of the living God, meaning he has the same nature of God the Father. And Jesus says, "Yes, you're right. You are so right that I'm going to build my church upon you." Now, that acknowledgement of Jesus as divine is the climax, the culmination, perhaps, of the relationship of the apostles with him before things begin to turn toward the passion, which is now what's happening. We're getting a pivot here in the gospel. Right after that, what happens? It was yesterday's reading, the transfiguration. They're all up on top of the mountain and they see Jesus. They're not all there. It's Peter, James, and John, the favorite disciples. And they see Jesus with Elijah, who represents the prophets, and with Moses, who represents the law and the prophets, together with the Messiah who fulfills them both. This is their mountaintop experience. Today in class, and remember I record these a few weeks in advance, we talked about the retreat hangover or the Jesus high, which comes before it. And I had students talking about that all day in all of my classes. You go to a retreat or something happens in your life, you have a mountaintop experience. You feel close to God. You feel that you can live that way, close to him from that point forward. But then what happens? You come back home, you're arguing with your brothers and sisters, your parents are bugging you, you're back to your old parish, nobody understands why you're so keyed up, and so forth. And you're back down from the mountain, and you wonder if that mountaintop experience was an illusion. Was it even real? I've had several of those. And then it's always hard. You come crashing down afterwards, in a sense. Well, Jesus and John and Peter and James are now coming down from the mountaintop. And they're coming back down. So they've had the experience. And while they do, Jesus quizzes them some more. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Do not tell anyone about the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." Actually, they quiz him. The disciples asked him, "Why then do the experts in the law say that Elijah must come first? Elijah must come to herald the true Messiah, according to the scribes who have studied the Old Testament." He answered, "Elijah does indeed come first and will restore all things. And I tell you that Elijah has already come, yet they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they wanted. In the same way, the Son of Man will suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them about John the Baptist. It's starting to fit together. The apostles are starting to figure it out. Now, will this enable them to be true to Jesus in the dreadful hour of his need? Well, no, because we know that story. And yet, it's beginning to fit together. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. There he is glowing with a radiance that must be close to what he looks like when he's not on earth. There he is with Moses and Elijah, the two primary figures from different parts of the Old Testament. Now they understand that Elijah did come. John the Baptist came symbolically as Elijah. We expect prophecy to be fulfilled in certain ways that we've preconceived. perhaps literally. In the case of Elijah will literally come. Well, he didn't literally come, but a new Elijah came, the greatest of the Old Testament prophets, who stands between the Old Testament and the New, John the Baptist. And what did they do with him? They treated him however they wanted to. They cut off his head, threw him into prison, and cut off his head because of a promise made to a little strumpet, a little dancing girl. Well, they're going to do that and worse to the Son of the living God. So just note how things are beginning to shift here in the Gospel according to St. Matthew.